Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Rethinking Balance Sheets, a show where we really look at the balance sheets of organizations, we look at companies, and we look at how we can help you to better your organization and to better understand some of the financial implications that may be affecting your organizations. Joining me today is, as always, my co host for this segment, Ravi Navaratnam. Ravi, always great to have you on our show. Ravi, welcome. And today we're going to talk about what are we going to talk about actually, Ravi?
We're going to talk a little bit about small and medium-sized companies and reorganization balance sheets in that respect. But just to say to everybody, first is Ramadan Mubarak, and also celebrating all the various New Years from the Tamils to the Malayalis to all the way down to Laos. Happy New Year to all of
Yes.
y'all. It's a start of a new year, start of the fasting month. But I think, times are challenging. Let's see if we can put some good ideas and solutions to help our friends in the small and medium-sized businesses out there today, Roshan.
Yep. And today we have a guest, Davin, who will be joining us shortly. But before we get Davin, one of the things I think is quite interesting for us to try to understand. We're talking about the loan moratorium and at the end of it, and also, in terms of what SMEs can do, right? So maybe we can talk a little bit about government, right? And the various organizations the government has directed to help some of these smaller and medium-sized businesses and individuals really reorganizing their balance sheets. What does that mean, and how is that even going to happen?
Okay, as you know, Roshan, a lot of since the pandemic, I mean, we've had governments have not just our government, but governments around the world have expanded their balance sheets as well, so to speak, through their central banks or whatever, to help businesses around the world.
That's
We've
right.
had various schemes to fund businesses. We've had changes in company law to stop bankruptcies and liquidations and winding up to take place so quickly and so forth. And then in places like Singapore and UK and all, there's been also particular legislations involving contract law. So with this crisis, there's been a broad amount of measures taken by the government to actually help businesses. But we're going to only talk about a very specific one today. And I think in that sense, Malaysia is blessed that we have the government has these organizations, which were not just set up for this crisis. They've been there for a long time, but they've been activated a little more more, or really being pushed out there to help businesses. And I think what we've got is at the large corporation level we have CDRC, and then at the smaller corporations we had SDRS, and then at the individual corporation, the individual level,
Level
they had AKPK. So
AKPK.
actually, yeah, but of course, there's been a certain amount of reorganization to that. And because these organizations exist, I think, and this doesn't cost anybody any money per se. It doesn't cost the government money. It doesn't cost anyone. And it's really looking to win-win solutions, right? And I think what we're very lucky here that we've got is work that one of our partners has done for a SME, working with SDRS, which is now part of AKPK. And Davin Fernandez has been working quite a while, and I think he's a great person to come on board and share why, and in times especially when the loan moratorium ends, right? That's,
Mm-hmm.
it
Yep.
will end, the pandemic will end, we will recover. It's not if, it's just when,
It's
but
when.
that when
Yep.
maybe a little longer than we hope for, but it's always a when. So when that happens, what do you do? Yeah. So
Yep.
we're going
And
to
then,
talk
so,
about,
yep. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So we're going to really start talking about, how you can actually, when you find difficulty in repayment, what could you do, and what help is out there.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to jump into really how SMEs can reorganize their balance sheets in times of crisis. And we have with us a guest, right? Davin Fernandez will be joining us. So, Davin, welcome
Hi,
to the
morning,
show.
guys. Morning,
Morning,
Ron.
Morning.
morning.
Morning, Roshan. Hi.
Very good to have
Good.
you with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be on. Thanks for those nice remarks.
And
Um,
maybe you can share a bit about yourself before we head off some to the grilling and the questions and the how we can
yeah,
help SMEs to rebuild their balance sheets.
sure. I studied in Sydney. I did a accounting and finance degree. After that, I joined an investment bank in Malaysia. It was formerly known as ASEAN Bankers Malaysia Berhad. So this is how old I am. I'm giving away my age a little bit. But now I think everybody knows it as Maybank Investment Bank, the bank with the tiger. I left that in 2008, and I think I've been with Sage 3 Capital and now Sage 3 Sdn ever since. It's been a good 12 years now, or 13 years. 13 years at Sage 3. So I've been good, learning under Ravi and the other partners as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. And one of the things I guess we should start with, I guess, is what's next. After the loan moratorium ends.
Okay. Well, I think the loan moratorium has been a very, very good thing for a lot of SMEs. And I think with it coming to an end, or likely coming to an end, I think the natural thing is people are going to start to panic. Okay. And they should not panic. Please don't panic. I think this was the first thing in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that Douglas Adams spoke, don't panic and carry a towel. I would drop the towel, but certainly don't panic. Now, I think there's a penchant to borrow more. And when traditional banking lines dry up or not available to a company anymore, I think there's always people tend to go for the alongs. So please don't panic and go for an along. Now, what options do you have? Well, I think banks they're not the evil corporations that I think many businessmen sometimes make them out to be. They're certainly open to
they're
these.
not, huh? They're not.
They're not.
Okay.
They're not.
No, that's good news.
They're not if you borrow a lot of money. So if you the borrow 500 million and you'll be fine. But
Okay.
borrow a couple of million, then maybe a bit more difficult.
Okay, because
But
that's why I'm in
banks, I
trouble.
mean, yeah. I'll put in a good word for you, Roshan. Maybe we can sort something out. But you have options with banks, right? So you can reschedule a facility, you can restructure it, and in some cases, refinancing may be the way to go for the company. Now, an individual entrepreneur trying to do this by himself, now you're going to find it difficult. Banks will pressure you to bending their way. Okay, they'll be like, hey, I noticed you have some nice assets and all that. Why don't you sell them and pay me back immediately? It's always, pay me back, pay me back. And if you don't know what to say and you don't have a champion in your corner and you're feeling around in the dark, that's going to be very, very difficult. Now, as Ravi mentioned earlier, Malaysia is blessed. We truly are blessed. We have all these institutions in place. And if you're an SME, Bank Negara Malaysia has got a small debt restructuring scheme in place. Okay, now these guys are actually not bad, and I think what we'll do is I'll in the next slide I'll give you a bit more what SDRS stands for. Now it's not small dog rescue scheme. It is it's to the banks maybe, but okay. So Bank Negara Malaysia, it stands for Small Debt Resolution Scheme. Okay. Now it is set up primarily to help you resolve your debt. It's supposed to be in an efficient and objective manner. Now the key thing here is, or the key test that the SDRS has in place is, you must be a viable business. Okay, you must be a viable business. There's some other things. You got to be Malaysian. You have to have fewer than 200 employees, less than the 50 million in total revenue. If you meet all those tests, you're certainly welcome, and you can apply to SDRS. Yeah.
Maybe Davin here, I think we just pause and ask a little bit of a question on this of viable.
I'm not.
I've actually looked at this, and this goes back to the time of Asian crisis, and we also had in Dana Harta this issue. You're viable, then we will restructure. But that's meant many things to many people, honestly. And if you really look up at the dictionary definition, is the ability to have profits going forward. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, this one. I'm not sure that's, if you take that strict definition from the point of view of the dictionary is quite the right one. Some people say as long as you're EBITDA positive as one of the thing. I think the real issue is, I would just get it down to a very, very simple definition. And I would say this is something that, we should debate a little more and we should think a lot more, is that there is a scenario for going concern. Is there a scenario for going concern? I mean, that's still not there, but I think the more we've sat and we've worked through this over the last 30, 20 odd years, the answer to that is there a scenario from going concern? Coming back to what even our guest last week, Tyler, had talked about, the intangible value, and that's about preserving a vast amount of that intangible value of the business. Just to share with you, just last week, we were talking about a manufacturing factory, fairly well-known listed company, went down. Original estimations on a liquidation, 250 million, end up 40 million, 10 to 12% recovery for bankers. That just does not make any sense for anybody. So this whole idea of restructuring, as long as you got a scenario from going concern, you haven't dipped your money into the till, I think bankers should give us a fair chance.
No, and Davin, I mean, what's the success rate for this SDRS? How I mean, I guess that'll be one of the questions that a lot of people will ask, right? In terms of what has it been useful for people, and what has happened along the way,
Okay, I can maybe speak on what I found when I undertook this SDRS restructuring. Now, this company has actually had about 22 million in debt, and I figured it would probably be better if they were placed under CDRC. Now, CDRC is actually quite busy and all that, so they're saying, no, this is too small for us. One, you go to SDRS. Now, I think this is a good case study to think about, because they had multiple subsidiaries and there were different lenders at different subsidiaries. So only one subsidiary, which had two lenders on board, met the criteria for SDRS. Okay. Now, for the other subsidiaries, those lenders there did not. There are only certain institutions which are under the SDRS charter. These guys did not fall under that. They didn't fall under the relevant Bank Negara guidelines. So those were done bilaterally on a bilateral basis. So direct negotiation with the banks. The SDRS process, we went with two bankers. Now, the application process itself, there's a form that they have when you go to the website, and you fill out the form. It's fairly detailed. You have to list out all your company particulars. So you have to be very serious if you're making this application, because you're really, there's quite a bit of work into it. I think it took about 2 weeks for the client and us to work through the application. Now, you also have to detail all your borrowings, whatever you have. Now, even the ones which are not covered by SDRS, you have to disclose. Now, you also have to explain why you got yourself into the mess in the first place. Okay. Now, the SDRS then considers the application. Okay. And at the same time, that document that you sent to them with all your details also gets sent to all the different banks. Okay. Now this happens over a period. There's a really nice drawn out diagram that they have which details this process. So I think they're given 7 days from the application for the banks to receive it. The banks then have to ask for additional documents. So everything must be sent to the banks. Once all documents are deemed to be complete, then they start a 21-day review period or review process. And then they revert with whether or not they approve your scheme, and then it's taken from there. Now, another thing that's interesting about this assignment that I undertook, we got in just as the first MCO happened. So 16 to 17 March, I think we were mandated, and we had to do the SDRS application whilst everybody was in lockdown. So there's things going back and forth. Even SDRS, they said, no, you can't meet us. We can talk to them over the phone, but you had to send the application in via email. They were very fast. I found that the officer had called around, set up a meeting with the banks within a matter of days. The meeting was held. They did not force the banks to lean a particular way or force upon the client to give to pay up, but they were listened, and they followed the process. Now, midway through it, because of COVID, I think things were very delayed at the banks and all that. I think it came to a shock to everybody, and that it didn't take 21 days. It took far longer than that. And in the meantime, while this was happening, I think there was already talks about them being moved from Bank Negara to under the umbrella of AKPK where they are now. And I will talk later on about why I think that's a good thing, but it was moved there.
Okay.
And that officer took over, and and the banks, uh, it is upon them to revert in a timely manner. And if they don't agree, or they have some other way they want to restructure the loan, they have to write to SDRS, and they have to explain to SDRS why it should be done the way that they want it to be done. And I found it very effective.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
that letters of offers were sent out to these banks within that timeline, 21 days. When it came to the other banks, because you have to engage with them, so on the bilateral basis, you go meet them, you explain, you have to have a separate presentation. Sometimes you have to have more than one, just to get them on site and explain to them why the restructuring is taking that particular form. That has taken much longer. So
Okay.
right now, both banks under SDRS have reverted with approval. Those banks which are out there on bilateral basis, they're still dilly-dallying and going around, and just it takes longer. SDRS, it was effective.
Oh, that's a really important point, that you actually
Mm.
got a multi-bank situation sorted out quicker than a single bank situation,
Yep. Yes.
because you're dealing
Yes.
through SDRS. I think the key point here is, to actually sometimes some of the feedback I've been receiving is we got to keep the show a little easier, so that folks out there can understand what we're talking a little bit more. And we really not to make it more difficult, but let me just give this, get to Roshan's very quick answer to this. Things are still new, so hard to tell success rates. But I can
Yep.
tell you something from my experience in 1998 onwards during the Asian crisis. We had a lot of commercial borrowers under Sign Bank. And I know once there is a forum and a platform, even that was really through Danahata at that time,
Yep.
the recoveries were way better. Till today, some of these people are friends out there. Small guys out there are friends out there. They survive the Asian crisis, they come back. So I think you just want to keep it at a very simple level for this one is, if you're a small borrower, sometimes it's frightening to go and see the bankers. Sometimes it's because previously your loan recovery officer has suddenly changed. It could have been changed.
Right.
The banker, which was the nice guy all your life, suddenly says, "I want my money." It can be a shock to the system. Yeah. And then how do you organize and, this one? So what I think we are trying to tell people is, look, here is a place you can go. It's safe and you can talk nicely. I think that's
But
about
Ravi,
yeah,
Ravi,
way
I
to
mean,
say, Davin.
Yeah,
no,
I agree, Ravi, and that
yeah.
them moving to AKPK was actually very good, because
But
AKPK
before
has got.
Davin,
Oh,
before you
sorry.
go there, I mean, I want to just jump in on Ravi's point about you see, I mean, one of the things I gave Ravi, that when you're in a situation where this happens to you and your business and you need to reorganize and so on, that there's some sort of mindset. A lot of things go on in your mind, right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
kind of ashamed, maybe. I'm going for help. How do we fix some of these things? And should they be? I mean, I know the answer is yes, right? We shouldn't be ashamed to go and ask for help. But how do you overcome some of these things, especially if you've been having a good run over the last couple of years, and suddenly these things are triggered, and you get this difficulty and financial distress situation, I mean, talk us a bit through I think you've dealt with a lot of businessmen who've gone through that. Is there a simple process that we can share on getting to the point of saying, okay, let's talk to AKPK or SDRS and get it up and running,
Okay, I think businessmen must understand that it's not always their fault, and sometimes these things happen. You could like look at Kodak, right? I think maybe all those years ago they thought, hey, people are going to need film forever. I think they were also responsible for the digital camera creation and all that.
Yep,
And
yep.
they just one day
And they
something
mucked it
happens,
up.
and you're going to find yourself in a position where you're not used to, right? Now, it's great that these things exist. There are options for you, and if you've been a good, let's say you've got a good relationship with your bank, I mean that usually also extends to times when you are having issues. Now, I found that, I think Ravi will agree with this, but like some of our clients, I mean the banks like them. they've been good, they've paid, they found themselves in a situation which could not be avoided, and the banks have been quite receptive and have helped. But again, I think it comes back to the big V, whether or not there's a basis for viability or not.
Yeah.
Maybe
True.
if
Ravi?
maybe if I just ask you, I think we've all gone through this in that first show we did some time ago with MCO and that whole of the acceptance phase. I think I'll just change it a little bit. I mean, if you're a businessman and you can see the business crumbling around you, and I think I will talk about, people not knowing about AKPK and stuff like that. That we'll talk about later, right? That's why we are having this show, so that people know about these things, right?
Yeah.
And I think to me is, if I look at my business and I keep always telling us, and my partner, Dr. Rina, says, everybody here is family, right? Your family is in pain. Don't tell me you're not going to go and see the doctor. Just take it simple. We always, in Dana Harta, we used to say, Dana Harta was coming to the hospital. Going to see SDRS is, think about it like this, or going to see AKPK is going to see the doctor. Very simple.
Nice.
Go and see the doctor.
Yep. I just, we got a bunch of guests that are watching. LinkedIn user says good morning and to all of us. And Raja Singham, I guess, from BAC, the founder, is also watching the show. So
nice.
to Raja, thanks for watching.
Hi.
And he's finding some useful insights. So maybe we should get him on the show and get some insights from him too. And of course, Hushin and a few others are also saying hi. So thanks for tuning in, guys. And if you do have any questions for either Ravi or Davin, shoot them on the comment section, and we will get to them in the later part of the show. So happy to chat and get to some of your questions. Sorry, Ravi, you were, or Davin, sorry, you were saying something, and I butt in and interrupted with that question. Go ahead with your comment.
No, that's fine. I'm okay. It's fine. I think it was covered by Ravi as well, so it's okay.
Okay. One of the things I think people worry about is the current lines of financing, right? We have this current lines of financing. What are your thoughts surrounding that?
Okay, I think people get worried that once you go into one of these institutions, banks are just going to call the lines and pull the plug, and
absolutely,
make the situation worse, right? Now, what happens with CDRC and SDRS as well, to a degree, is that there's an informal standstill. As in, the banks are, there's no law that tells them that they must, but because they deal with Bank Negara all the time, and they understand that sometimes you need to restructure a debt, they agree to an informal standstill. So they don't remove the facility. You can't draw down. Obviously, you can't continue to rely on it, but they're not demanding for their payment back. Okay, and what these banks realize is, just say you run your business, Roshan, right? Now, if something happens to you, and you are unable to carry on this business, and just say the bank came in and it's like, hey, maybe I'll try and get some money back through running the business, they won't know how to. Okay, so the entrepreneur is key, and the best option for them to get their money back is always through the business.
Yeah.
And I think Dana Harta had done some studies before. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Ragib, I think about the most effective, and at about a rate of 65-70%, recovery was best when it's done with the entrepreneur and through the business. And the liquidation and all that is so far away from it. It just doesn't enter their minds as well.
Let me just share with you. But this one, I'm afraid I'm going to go a little bit more technical. In fact, there's a global report by the G30 on this issue, and I think it was one of the key persons was Tharman in Singapore who led that report. Very, very, very smart people, Rajaram, the former RBI boss, and so on, done with Harvard, and a great study. And one of the things they talked about was Chapter 11 and debtor in possession. Malaysia wasn't featured in the report. When I read the report, we are so far ahead in these areas of restructuring. It's not funny, right? We are so far ahead. Perhaps it's less known. That's, like I said, this one is less known. Definitely, that's why Chapter 11 is considered the best way, debtor in possession. And this is exactly why. If you're on the recovery side, and you, like when I was in Dana Harta, the best way for the banks to recover the money is make the borrower work for you. Make the borrower work for you. And that's a lot of them perhaps don't understand. Not everybody has been around since the Asian crisis. There are probably a lot of younger bankers out there. But if you got any problems, do give us a line. I mean, if a 15-minute call is not going to kill Sage 3, even if you're an SME, we may not be able to take on an assignment and help you for sure. I think that's almost certain we can't. But we're certainly here. Give us a call, drop us a note. Hey, I've got this problem, and we can at least give you 15 minutes of free advice on what you can do. Oops, we can't hear you, Roshan. Your mic's off.
Sorry about that. No, this is fantastic. I mean, we're going to continue this conversation, but we're going to take a very short break, and we're going to just show a little bit of the club that's happening in school. So if you want to do good in this time of pandemic, you can volunteer and go back to your school, your alma mater, and volunteer to run a leadership club where you can help kids become better leaders. So let's watch and take a quick break.
Tired of attending online classes and programs without really understanding why? We're not the answer, but we do hold the key to the door in front of you. The virtual world can be exhausting, and if you're not selective, you're basically standing still. Introducing a self-paced mentoring experience with only 13 live sessions a year. Based on the literonomics science of building leaders, a leadership framework that spans a lifetime, develop the fundamental traits that will provide you with a strong foundation to propel you forward. It's not just an online program, it's a competitive learning experience.
Welcome back. So if any of you are interested in this virtual club that's being run for schools all over the country, in Malaysia, in Cambodia, and Brunei, 3 countries with the Ministry of Education in those countries, reach out to info@literonomics.com and you can get how you can volunteer and how you can get your school also involved or kids that you know of involved in this virtual club. We're back to Ravi and Davin Fernandez. We're talking about this exciting topic of financing, especially when the loan moratorium ends, and how SMEs can restructure or reorganize their balance sheets. And Davin, you were talking a bit earlier on about this whole concept of we were talking about essentially specifically zooming in on this question of trying to understand the current standing of the lines of financing. And you mentioned there's this installment standstill. You mentioned there's this repayment option, but also there is a possibility of financing new financing lines that are possibilities, right?
Yes.
You want to expand on that a little bit?
Okay, so another thing that SDRS has is, they have an option where, you can apply for new financing through that program, and they will circulate it amongst their participating institutions. Now, you have to clearly detail what you need and why you need it and all that. So again, it's a credit evaluation, but it's nice that they have that option because they realize that sometimes all the business really needs is some cash. And I think we find in restructurings where someone has come up with money for the business and has pumped it in, and those restructurings are more or less they're on the home straight. They are more likely to succeed than any of the others. So that's very important to have.
I think, Roshan, what I would say is, even if you can't get new financing, if you don't restructure, I'll tell you this: you will never get new financing. If you got your loan there on I know there's a lot of things on secrets, etc., which has been put off for the moment. But if your NPL there, the secrets, you ain't going to get any financing. So it's best to restructure, get out of all the problems first. Then even at the very least, your operating, maybe your trade creditors are going to give you some lines, etc. So you're still better off than do nothing approach. So I think, step 1, get the restructuring. 2, if you can get new financing through SDRS, that's a bonus. Go for it. Great stuff. But at least get the basics that, you sustain your going concern working with the bankers. And, you never know that, you go and see people have ideas. They can share their ideas with you. You know, you can do this, you can do that. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? You don't know where these things end. So, you know, I would say get to first base, go see SDRS, yeah, or AKPK. And AKPK, I understand, is in every town in every state in Malaysia, right, David?
They have 6 branches and they have
Okay.
a significant online presence.
Yeah, so there's 6 branches you can go to. Yeah.
And I think we put the contact details of AKPK. We will send it also on the stream at the bottom so that you'll be able to access that, right, Davin?
Yes, so it's essentially you go to their website. It is a little bit busy, so you have to know what you're looking for. But under a section, I think services, you click down on that, and then you have SDRS there. So you click on that, and I think it's a self fill-in form. Okay, and you fill in those details. And now, as AKPK, one of their mandates is to educate the public about healthy credit practices and what you should be, you know, don't borrow more than what your company is able to generate, and they have that role to fulfill as well. So there's usually a counseling session added onto this application process now.
Yep. And are there specific requirements and eligibility, or are pretty much no big issues?
Well, there were eligibility criteria specified under the SDRS guidelines before. And what that does is, yes, you must be Malaysian owned. You should not have, your employees should not be more than 200 people. Your turnover should not exceed 50 million. Now, I mean, I think quite easy to get in. Not too many of those companies around the place. But it's a thing where you must also have impairment. You must, again, viability creeps into the discussion here as well.
And the application and the application process is quite seamless, right? Not too complex.
Okay. So the form is available. So you fill that up. Now that takes up the bulk of your time. They need your form 40, your company forms, I think 4724, those types of things go in. Your audited accounts need to be put in. You have to list your directors, all that goes in. You have to list out all your loans. You have to list out what went wrong, etc. And you also have to give a reason why you think you deserve this chance, or you should be under this restructuring, and your plans to get out of the predicament that you have.
Okay.
So,
And Ravi, love to hear your thoughts, in terms of how I mean, like I said, I mean, a lot of businesses. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I like to talk about perhaps for the small and medium-sized industries. First thing is, I think a loan moratorium itself means the debt level's increasing, right? It's just increasing. And with the crisis, what's happening is your revenue is dropping. Yeah, it's coming down. You got more debt, less revenue. And unless you're going to have a fantastic recovery, post-pandemic, and that even then we are pretty unsure where that is, you do need to really look at that balance sheet and see what can be done to get to that debt level to what is we call a sustainable level, right? Not one that you can't afford and, you continuously become a zombie company, right? We don't want zombie companies in Malaysia. We want companies that can grow, be healthy, contribute to the economy. That's also good for the banks. It's good for the government. It's good for everybody, right? So that's critical. So I think, you really, if you haven't had a chance, I would suggest if you got a decent set of accountants, please go and have a chat with the accountants. If not, have a word with your bankers. If you don't take our word for it, but I think, go and have AKPK, etc. And I can tell you one of the things that just a very simple thing. It's very hard to get people in and people to make decisions on loans. But if you got a central bank agency out there helping you, it just makes life that much easier, right? People will turn up for meetings. People will come back with time frames. People will listen to issues and talk rationally, not be, shoved to the side, which can happen. Let's be honest. It can happen when you're talking to a banker who's got so many other problems to deal with. So I think getting into AKPK gives you a set of rules to follow, and the bankers have to follow. So that gives you an advantage in getting the restructuring done.
Okay. Thanks, Ravi. We're gonna just take a question. So we've actually put out the site for AKPK. So if you go out there, it's akpk.org.my, and you can have a look at that, and we'll also send you the links for some of the other pieces. We're gonna just take another very quick short break. This time we're gonna feature something called Nicole, and we're creating a community, rethinking balance sheet community. If you are, in there, where we'll put in tools, where we put in kind of roadmaps, and also these videos of these shows will also be featured there. So here's a quick 30 seconds teaser on Nicole that will be available for you. Welcome back, and we're gonna kind of coming to the tail end of where we are today. We talked about. I mean, I think many times businesses struggle, and especially when it comes to do planning, right? In these times, right? Because it's difficult, and you don't seem to have light at the end of the tunnel. And how? I mean, just to wrap it up, Ravi and Davin, love to hear your thoughts on how do you plan for business, and to get to a certain agenda that you're seeking to drive in such volatile and difficult times.
Okay, maybe I'll just have a quick stab at that. I look at it at three levels, right? There are businesses which actually are doing well out of this pandemic, right? If you make gloves, your whole thought is how do I expand capacity, right? So those guys are one category of it. There is another category which is which I think a lot of businesses are going to be in, is that with just any downturn, revenues are going to be down. You're going to have difficulty collections, all that usual problems associated with a recession begins to take place. Of course, interest rates have come down, but that part of the business is the bulk of what we are talking about, and that one is mainly financial restructuring. Okay, and this is where AKPK can help. Then there's a third category which I call, which is like the football game has actually stopped. We're in half time, right? We're actually at half time. No game can be played. If you're virtually an airline, 90% of your aircraft can't play at all. If you're in a hotel, a vast majority of the rooms cannot be, there's no occupancy in your so on those cases, I think there's only one way that can be sorted out, and that really needs a huge amount of forbearance from all sorts of providers of capital, be it your landlords, your bankers, and so on. So look, of course, if the landlord in the shop could do something else, then I think it's going to be difficult to continue to ask them. But it's a whole about mothballing and keeping the business, that means on hold until COVID passes, right? You got to let go just keep it to a skeletal and moving. That's probably, I think, the three scenarios I would talk about until we get some clarity to where COVID ends. And I think the other day I was just listening to the IMF economist, and she said, "What numbers do you look at?" I think the answer was pretty obvious when CNBC asked her that. She said, "The only numbers that matters today in the world is the COVID numbers." And I just subscribe to that. So the only numbers that really matters now is the COVID numbers.
Yep. And Davin, love to hear your final thoughts, and your kind of as a kind of a wrap up of what we talked about. What your final advice would be to business owners and to the SME leaders out there.
Okay. My advice to them would be seek help. Do not try and get this done by yourself. Talk to people. If you're an SME and you fall under this criteria for SDRS, I would advocate this process. That is something you try and you try for yourself. There are professionals out there who are able to help you, and I think Ravi has offered 15 minutes for us. If you want to come and speak to us over the phone, no problem. I agree. I think we'll be more than willing to listen to you. And I think they should also educate themselves. This is also a good opportunity for them to, maybe engage in some cost cutting measures, streamline their business. It doesn't mean that you have to sit still. There are many ways you can improve your business while while this pandemic is ongoing. And yeah, just think about your business. Nobody knows it better than you.
Yep. And don't feel ashamed, I guess, to reach out to AKPK and other organization.
It's private and confidential. I don't think it goes out. Nobody else knows. It is the banks who have already done to you. They're aware. They'd certainly be aware if you are in distress as well. So there's only things for you to gain from this process, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'll say, if I was on the other side, when I use it, the fact that you see you've got a problem and you want to solve it is a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. It's absolutely positive.
Agreed.
And Ravi, as we wrap up, your final thoughts and your final piece of advice to business leaders and also SME owners.
I think the thing that we did learn during the crisis is, you're sick, go to the doctor. You're sick, please go to AKPK, get help. Yeah, I can't make it easier for that. And then the other thing that we've been drumming on this show is, your business. You're the ones which can really help everybody out there. So as a leader, please go get the help, but use your knowledge to solve the problems. Yeah, that's clear. And above all, I mean, in this crisis, what you don't want is your business to be shut down by COVID. Make sure you're following all the procedures and taking all the precautions to make sure that your business does not get shut down by COVID.
And I think to your point about COVID numbers, I think with the numbers yesterday scaling upwards, I want to wish everyone a safe weekend. Stay well, stay safe, and for those kind of at this point in time with Ramadan, continue to keep yourself well. It's been another scintillating conversation. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Davin. It's been most fantastic. And don't forget, check out Nicole.app. If you haven't, it's a great learning AI powered learning app that you can use to power yourself and continue to grow in this season of at the end of the day, growth is everything, right? So regardless of what the season is, it's all about growing. So with that, thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone. Have a great Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and we will see you back next Friday, same time, same place. And shoot your questions and continue to engage in dialogue with us. We're going to end with a short little video on Nicole, and we'll close it out here. Thank you again. Happy weekend, everyone, and goodbye.
Woi, bro.
Apa dia?
Aku message kau 50 kali, tak balas.
Alah bro, aku tak ada time lah bro message. Aku sekarang tengah Nicole bro. Nicole lah, itu dia in sekarang. Tengah trending tengah kacau.
Kau cakap apa? Apa tu?
Nicole. Kau tak tahu Nicole? Google kau tahu? Nicole kau tak tahu? Tak, Nicole app untuk belajar bro. Semua tengah belajar guna Nicole sekarang. Ilmu semua tengah guna Nicole.
Share sikit lah.
Boleh bro, kau tengok macam ni bro.
Okay.
Kau kalau kau lembab, kau kena Nicole bro.
Memang aku lembab sikit sebenarnya.
Bro, kalau kau nak laju, kau nak top, kau nak jadi CEO, kau kena guna Nicole. Kau tahu kena pergi mana? Digital.dynamic.org. 200 je bro tahun.
Aku buat tu aku tak lembab dah
tak tahu bro capacity kau macam mana. Tapi aku rasa Nicole ni boleh tolong kau lah bro. Confirm.
Okay. Berapa?
RM200 je bro tahun.
Boleh lah duit raya pakai
selamba bro. Ni kau tengok ni bro. Percaya bro, kau tengok ni. Ini daripada Howard bro. Power bro. Oi,
memang cantik.
Apa ni? Jangan ambil aku punya.
Okay.
Aduh.
Sorry. Aku teruja sangat lah.
Ni tak apa, kita tunggu sini.